So I don't know about you guys, but I get the feeling like this has been going on forever. And I'm starting to question, like, I've always had a lifestyle where I woke up every day enjoying life, looking forward to everything that I had planned that day, and thriving, right? And now, it's fun to have a thriving lifestyle when things are going well. Mm-hmm. Right now, I don't know how well things are going. I think we're all feeling a little trapped, isolated, and stuck in some ways. And I'm wondering how, despite all that's going on, how can we still thrive on a daily basis? I'm wondering, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I think that's the problem, though. I don't think a lot of us think we can. I think in the beginning of this, I was like, oh, this is great. I'll have extra time. I won't have to commute as much. I was really thriving the first couple of weeks. I was like, this is great. And then, I don't know, my mindset has definitely shifted since then. I'm like bored, and I feel like I have to motivate myself in ways that I never had to before. And the more people that I'm talking to, the more I'm hearing that's the mindset a lot of people are maintaining right now, where because I can't do it the same way that I used to do it, and because I have no idea how else to do it, that it must mean I can't. And that's what I see myself at times, but a lot of other people too, investing in that mindset where because I can't do it that way, I can't do it at all. And then we just don't. So
that's an important piece to all of this, right? Our mindset really dictates a lot of our motivation and decisions as to what we do day in and day out. And I think having that shift affects us. And depending on whether we have a mindset of I can't or I can, really determines what kind of day we're going to have. I have also been struggling too in terms of feeling motivated in the beginning, kind of sticking to my routine. Then I went through a couple weeks where I just gave up on the routine. I slept in, I started eating my Oreos, like I'm doing all the things that I didn't, or 2 or 4, and feeling like, oh, it's no big deal. I felt like I was on vacation, but then I was like, all right, this is...
Like, when's it over?
When's this over? Like, I love vacation, but at the same time, I want to get back to my routine. So I'm finally getting back into my routine again, but I'm still struggling because, I used to go to the gym. Now I'm like doing push-ups. I'm like, all right, how many push-ups can I do? Like, it's really hard. And I'm wondering, as a mom, 3 kids, working full time and trying to homeschool. I thank God my kids, my youngest is in college. She's home, which I love. But having younger kids and trying to homeschool and work full time, how's that? What's that?
It is a challenge. While I feel fortunate to be able to work from home, and that's great, I'm also balancing, 3 kids who are in different grades and have different needs and different, who can't get online, is the site crashing, and the schools were doing, everything they could to make it as seamless as possible and to kind of relax, the requirements, so to speak, but that doesn't take away their frustration and then my frustration and trying to help them. My 3rd grader needs a little more guidance than, say, my 5th grader and my 9th grader does. They're a little more independent and self-directed, but still feel the need to check in with them and struggle with, the mom guilt. So if there are a number of hours that I'm working from the office, thinking, it's 2 o'clock and they haven't had lunch yet, and then having that kind of guilt associated with that. I'm not being as present for them as I should be, or
so
I'm not
trying to do
involved,
all
trying
the
to be, teacher and confidant and social coordinator and also work and make sure everybody's kind of balanced, that they're not too stressed, because I've tried to take the standpoint that, their mental health is first and foremost. So start from there, and kind of move from that. So, and luckily the school has made assignments pass-fail, so that
helps.
alleviated a lot of stress. Yeah. And I know that there are districts out there where it's not pass-fail. I have a friend in Maryland who is so completely stressed, and her kids are struggling. Their grades have slid. She's stressed because it's graded. It's not pass-fail.
That guilt I hear from a lot of moms in particular, parents in general, but moms in particular, who feel like they are, bad at everything. Like, I'm not doing good at work because of all these other things going on. I'm not being good at being a mom because I'm
excelling at any one thing. You're doing everything.
So then it's just not enough.
Yeah. But one of the things that we talked about earlier is mindset, and you even mentioned the whole idea of shifting things, changing expectations. And I guess, you know, that's probably one of the important things that we need to do as individuals is kind of recognize what's the situation and adapt. You know, if we don't adapt, if we don't make changes, that's when we get stuck. So what are some of the ways that you guys can think of or have been using to change and adapt to this situation?
You know, I've let the kids take kind of reign of their own. I've stepped
You're
back
hesitant
on it,
to
and
say all of this.
I really am under my
Like,
head judge.
Right?
But personally, it's what works for us and for
Yeah.
our family, and if that enables us to thrive and feel better and people to be less stressed and anxious, you know, I've kind of in my head just maybe told myself that, you know, missing a month or two of third grade is not going to negatively impact her as an adult, as a 20-something, or the career choice that she makes. Or so I guess trying to like step out and kind of look broad at it and not like allow myself to zoom out and not be so caught up in the day-to-day.
That's an excellent
hard.
point. You know, perspective is such a key piece, similar to mindset. And oftentimes, when we're looking at something through such a narrow lens, we don't get a whole lot, right? But just as you pointed out, as we expand that lens and kind of take the broader view, and also something else you said, Janet, the idea of what's best for our family.
Right now.
I think that's really important, that we look at our mindset, we change our perspectives or be aware of our perspectives, and do what's best for our family,
Right.
and be aware of that, right?
I think that's the hard part, though, is stepping out and zooming out, like you said, because we are in it.
Yeah.
And when you're in it, you can't just push pause. Like, the world is still happening, or maybe not happening in the way it used to. And so stepping back out, it feels like it's impossible to be able to do. And so when we were talking about mindset before, I think the mindset for a lot of us is that I can't because of, and then we zoom in on all of these different reasons why we can't. And so I think we need to kind of go back to the basics almost and redefine what can thriving look like, because sometimes we're so stuck on how it used to look that it's impossible to adapt to it now. Like you're saying, adaptation, like kind of being resilient in these times. I think it's really hard to do that when we have no idea what it could look like. We've never had to do this before. I think this is completely uncharted territory for all of us. So, but I guess one important part is that the response doesn't change, though.
Good
You
point.
know?
Good point.
The way we are responding needs to be the same. The mindset is I can. Now it's how.
Right.
Not I can because I have all these things, but how do I do it? Given these circumstances, given the situation, given kind of where I am, how can I do it? So things that are still important to me are still important now as they were before. They just look different. So, you know, you mentioned working out, maybe having a better nutrition regimen, if you will, or maybe, you know, socializing. Like we used to do that a lot, and now socializing is through a computer, and it just kind of feels weird, and so it's not the same. But if we could maybe bring it back, zoom out, figure out what it is that is still important to us, what do we still value, and then try to figure out and be creative, how can I still thrive in this environment and be able to get those values reinforced. I mean, I think that's essentially what we have to go back to, because I still care about
values
those things.
are very important.
Yeah.
And the whole idea of that pause, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned that when we're in it, it feels like we can't pause. But that's also a mindset, right? That's a perspective. That's a feeling in some ways that I'm stuck and I'm overwhelmed. What if we scheduled that pause? What if we woke up with a plan? I'm going to pause. I'm going to take a breath.
Right.
I'm going to step back.
I'm going to step back, right? And what if we planned to do that throughout the day? 2-3 different times throughout the day, right? So one of the things that we want to get from this conversation is what can we do? One of the things that we often do at SANARE is talk about not can we or can't we, it's how can we, right? We talk about what do you want and how do you get there? What's the plan? And part of this is looking at mindset, looking at perspective, prioritizing, changing our expectations, using adaptation, also recognizing what's important for us, how do we thrive, and then making a plan throughout the day to pause, think about how we're doing, acknowledging what we may need to do, and then put that plan into place. And I think that's hard to do, especially when things are so hard right now. But let's talk about what we still can do. Because oftentimes people are talking about, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't socialize, I can't go outside, I can't exercise, I can't eat well, I can't sleep well. I would say it's hard to go outside.
Right. I'm
It's
struggling right now with.
Right?
Right.
And that talk, the words that we use, the things that we're telling ourselves impact us.
Right.
So just changing that, having that cognitive shift a little bit from I can't to it's hard to.
Right.
I prefer to be at the gym.
It opens up
Right?
the door to be able to investigate how.
Yeah, I think it doesn't
Right.
make it so absolute.
Right.
Yeah.
Or
You know.
definitive. Yeah, like that this is it.
Right.
Because
and
of
that
X,
opens
Y,
up
and Z.
the how.
Yeah.
You know?
Mhm.
Right. Right. Which maybe that door is not open for a lot of us right now. And I'm absolutely guilty of that on a pretty regular basis throughout the week. Because again, it's hard. This is
Mhm.
not normal. This is not normal.
Good point.
You know?
This is not normal.
It's just not.
Recognize that.
Yeah.
It is hard
And now what?
and it's okay.
Right.
Right.
I think there's another layer to this that some people are saying this isn't okay.
Right.
Right.
It's not what I want. I'm sure it's not what any of us want. And so from that perspective, it's not,
They're not wrong.
okay.
Yeah.
They're not wrong. Right.
Right.
It's not okay
It's
from that
valid.
perspective. What am I going to do about it?
Right.
Right.
Right?
How can I be okay anyway? How can I still thrive
Yeah.
in this environment that I can't change?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what can I change? Because I think a lot of us are focusing on the environment and I wish I could change it. I wish I could do something and I can't. And like that's where we end.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah. And that
Yeah.
does suck when we
Yeah, when we
focus
get
on
to
we're
that
like,
point.
Oh, like yeah, you're right. It really does. But it's kind of like can I be familiar with a new norm? A current norm.
So one of the other things that we often do at SANARE is question, is that the only answer? Right? Is there another way than I could look at this? Do I always need to get to I can't?
Mhm.
Or is there another door to open?
Mm-hmm.
How can I?
That'd be a belief though, right? Because
Yeah.
that's the part we'd have to shift. We have to believe if we get to a place where I can't, well then there's a new door then. Where's the door?
Mhm.
As opposed to I can't just must mean I can't. And then that's where we stay. So there has to be a shift, I think, there, and that shift is really difficult sometimes. So I think there has to be a willingness to step back, kind of like you were saying, zoom
For
out,
sure.
recognize where we are, validate where we are without judging, and then be able to question what can I do,
Mhm.
as if there's an actual answer.
And willingness also comes with back to what do I want?
Right.
Right? And if I want to thrive, am I willing then to make that happen?
Right.
And to adapt and do the things that I need to do now in order to still have my values that are so important to me
Right.
be experienced every day.
Right.
Right? So what's important to me? Talking with family. Can I call them? Can I text them? Can I have a Zoom meeting?
Right.
Yes.
Can I sit in a chair outside? Can I actually go outside? Because there's this perception that I can't go outside, which, again, there's a lot of things going on, but it's like, you know,
Right. And
outside,
it's
we
a good
need
point.
that.
And there's, the idea of exercise and staying healthy, and you don't have to be completely shut in if you're comfortable enough,
Right.
going out and maintaining the social distancing. I have met my sister in the park. We
Mhm.
were, of appropriate distance from each other, but we get our
But isn't it a
exercise.
different
and
vibe too? Like it's kind of like as a human, I can
It
see you. It's
is.
Yeah.
like
It's
okay,
just
even
like-
if you're over there,
And
I
even though
can
my
see you.
instinct is to when I see her to hug her, we don't. So we
Right.
kind of fight that, and that almost feels weird
Yeah.
or awkward.
Very hard being Italian,
Really?
not
Yeah.
hugging,
Oh yeah, so
not even
weird.
shaking a hand.
Yeah.
So
like,
weird.
wow,
But there's
hard.
something that's so good for the soul to have that human, just to visualize
Just to see you
another.
in person, not through a screen,
Yeah.
Correct.
but like right
Right.
here in front of me. It's
Correct.
like oh my gosh,
and
this
then
is amazing.
and then the fact that you're going through moving your body,
Right.
movement,
Mhm.
and
Which is
getting the
important.
exercise and
Yeah.
the fresh air, and just I find myself kind of like just reflecting even when I go for walks alone,
Mhm.
just on the peace or the quiet, or I hear the birds
That's a
chirping, or I
pause.
see the
Right.
Right?
the clouds moving in the sky, or just noticing different things,
Yeah.
and I think that kind of is centering and
All ways of
Yeah.
thriving, right?
yeah.
Going on a walk, noticing what's around me, tuning in to what's going on around me, listening to the things that are really beautiful, like
Right.
listening to
Right.
birds singing, listening to kids playing, if you're hearing them around in your backyard or whatever, and maybe even having more family time. I know we've been playing Uno like every night. Like, it's fun in some ways, and we start digging out some of these old games that we used to play when the kids were younger or whatever.
We've definitely gone through the game closet.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I've got one of the three is very into games. And puzzles. We've
Puzzles,
had some puzzles delivered, and
Been a
we've built them together, and so it.
Cooking, maybe getting together as a family to cook together.
But I think it's interesting because, again, that wouldn't be my first thing to do if it was normal. And so I'm like, I don't really feel like doing that, or like walking alone. Like I don't want to do that because I'm comparing. But if I can, like you said a second ago, if I can refocus and intentionally look in on that, if I can intentionally, pay attention to what is and what's good about what is, as opposed to just comparing, which I do often, and I think most of us do. Right? If we can recognize that that's just something that will happen, and then intentionally and purposefully do kind of what you just said and just be there with myself, it actually is really
you begin to look forward to it. Like for me, I feel like I know some people don't like the term new normal, but I do feel like in redefining things, you come to that place of just accepting it. So now I do look forward to my new pattern, whatever I've kind of established for myself. And that's okay. Some of it's stuff that I haven't done for years, like, fitting puzzles together.
Well, isn't that all part of thriving, though, is not only the adaptation, but the acceptance of the new normal. The more resistance I have towards something, the more conflict that I have. Right? So if I can adapt and accept what that adaptation is, I can then embrace it, and then I can enjoy it and actually look forward to it. I can actually have fun and thrive.
As opposed to like, I'm still here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, and one of the other things we often do, and I do this quite a bit too, is that yes but, right? And if we can change that yes but thinking to yes and, it's similar to that preference, like, yes, this is hard and I still can.
Right.
Instead of saying I can't,
or it's not as good,
that comparison, right?
Yeah. Recognizing that you're right, it's not the same, and it's not my preference, like you said earlier. This is not what I would choose if I could choose, but the fact that I can't, what can I choose? And I think that's kind of what I was hearing from you, is like, I'm redirecting to what can I choose, and the thing that I chose is in my control, and it's something that I can do that's fulfilling.
Right, and
I
feel like
do before.
Then the more you do that, the more that becomes, you're okay with that. You're looking forward to that. You're not comparing as much. It becomes your kind of new routine.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is what we all thrive in, right? Routine.
Exactly. Yeah. So as we're saying, it's really important to learn how to adapt and still be able to thrive. It's not a yes, I can't. It's more of how can I, right? And one of the things that we talked about is the importance of not only mindset and our perspective on things, but doing the things that are important to us, like our values, also play a big part of this. Two of those things that I think is really important to me, and I hope to everybody else, is the importance of nutrition and also the importance of movement. And I'm wondering, Darren, can you talk a little bit about why is that important for all of us in order to thrive?
So the thing with movement is, we're in a time of uncertainty, right? When it comes to health. More uncertainty that maybe we've experienced in our lifetimes in terms of health. So one of the things about being isolated and being in the house is you're almost waiting for somebody to say it's safe. It's safe to go out, it's safe to do this, we're sitting there waiting. And that's frustrating. So the way to get control of that is just to make sure you're as healthy as you possibly can be. That's important. That's the thing that you can control. And it really shouldn't take a pandemic to do that. And if you think of it, it creates an opportunity. So now is the time, hey, we're living in a time of pandemic, we're living in a time of quarantine. No better time than to get healthy. And the great thing about...
Because it's really important now.
It's really important.
More than ever.
More than ever. And we're learning more about COVID-19 every day. And that's good news. The entire medical community across the entire world are all pointed at COVID-19. That's a wonderful thing. And at the end of the day, it's positive, it's optimistic. We're going to figure out everything we need to know about this particular pathogen. But what we've always known, the best way against any pathogen, whether it be COVID-19, whether it be the seasonal flu, is to be as healthy as you can, inside and out. And that's diet and exercise, same as it's always been. It's been diet and exercise for the caveman, it's been diet and exercise in the 1920s, and it's the diet and exercise now. And it's the best thing you can do. It's the only known vaccine for anything that may come across, whether it be cancer, whether it be COVID-19, whether it be the flu. If you're healthy inside and out, that's going to help you with anything. And just some simple tips. Don't overthink it. That's the easiest thing.
That's very hard to do.
Constant comparison to what I really want.
But that's similar to what we were talking about earlier. It's hard, and I still can, right?
Yeah.
It has to be part of a plan. It has to be somewhat intentional. How do I think calmly about things? How do I think positively about things? As opposed to how do I not overthink it? How do I think about it in a more realistic or more acceptable way? What are some of those tips there?
So just move. Don't overthink it, just move.
Any kind of movement.
Any kind of movement. Any kind of movement is going to be better than no movement. And a good rule of thumb is move about 30 minutes a day. And that could be anything. And in the world, this process is infinitely easier in the digital age. So you can Google anything and find 30 minutes of stuff to do, or you could just walk around your neighborhood.
Walk around your house.
Walk around your house.
Walk up and down your steps.
Just move.
Walk in place.
What happens with, I've been doing this for 25 years. What happens with every fitness program is we as humans overthink. I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to follow this regimen or whatever. And invariably you freeze. You say, well, I couldn't do this today, so I'm not going to do anything. Or I don't have time to do that today, I don't need to do anything. And that's flawed. That's not, you don't have to do that.
It's
just
that
move.
either or.
Yeah, just move.
It's not about either or.
Walk, move.
Or is this good enough? Right,
Yeah.
I think that kind of takes that element away from it. If you just are saying move in general, then I can check that off anytime, right?
Well, that goes back to expectations, right?
Right.
If I say a workout only consists of this, that's an either or way of looking at it. And exercising or being physically or being moving can only be this. That eliminates all the other options, right? And we want to look at options so that we have ways of still thriving. It's not about can I, it's about how can I. So any kind of movement.
Any kind of
really, really important.
But it goes back to your mindset before, though. You even said, I used to go to the gym all the time, and now I'm just doing push-ups. It's like, okay, but does that mean we can only do push-ups, or is that is it just different than what I'm used to doing?
Yeah.
Right? So if it's, just a move, that can look very different.
This is how simple it is. If you could develop just something that will make you feel great and accomplish the goals by quite simply getting down on the floor and getting back up. It's that easy.
Getting down and back up.
Down and back up.
Down, back
Get
up.
down, lie on your back, and get back up.
Whole
5
body.
times.
Yeah.
Over and over.
And if you do it quick, you
it's
can
that
get your heart rate up.
Yes,
right?
because getting down on the floor and getting back up involves every joint that you have.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that simple. Don't overthink it is the simplest thing. And that equates to nutrition as well, in the sense that, do I count points?
I'm glad you brought that up because nutrition, depending on the week, has gone out the window for me. Like some weeks I'm on,
I'll be
and
like,
then
I
other
ate my
weeks.
fruit today, but I had like 6 Oreos too, so I don't really know if that
Yeah.
I balanced the fruit, the fiber with the Oreos.
I had an
and
extra fruit just in case.
Yeah, peanut M&Ms have been like.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, some rules of thumb to think about, but again, this is all on the internet. Most of us have access to computers or a smartphone or whatever, and you could Google search 10 healthy foods. It's just that simple. There's no need, we don't have to pay for diet plans or isogenics or Weight Watchers. They're all wonderful programs, but there's no need to say, well, I can't afford a good diet plan. I can't afford a personal trainer. I can't afford a dietitian. You don't need to. You don't need to. It's very simple. Just some simple rules of thumbs. Limit your sugar and eat things from the earth. It's that easy. Limit your sugar intake and eat things from the earth. Fruits, vegetables, if it's grown from the earth, as we are, it's healthy for you. It's just that easy. Limit your sugar. And move.
Well, in theory, right?
In theory.
In theory. But then that
Simple,
goes back to
not easy.
mindset, it goes back to
Right.
perspective, because it's easier to just buy something that's pre-made that has a bunch of other things in it that's not just from the earth
Right.
because I'm struggling, right? And one of the problems that I think we have is that when we're struggling, we want things to be easier, right? It's an area that I don't have to struggle with. And I think that goes back to a choice. You know, what's important to us goes back to values.
I think it's also easier though because, you know, at least for me, when I'm bored, I need something that's enticing. And if I can't leave the house or, you know, perceivably do the things that I want to do, then it's kind of like, well, what's going to be just as fulfilling or like at least give me that little high for a second, you know, and it might be an Oreo. But then to your point, it gets twisted in my mind of, well, I can't do it. It's like, is it I can't or this is just more instant gratification and that's just my preference right now and kind of recognizing that it could be that easy though. I don't have to overthink.
And we can always get back to it, right? Just because we had an Oreo doesn't mean like we're done. Like we messed up our whole diet plan or whole nutrition plan. One of the things that I've always tried to do and encouraged others to do is to do more of something that's healthy and helpful to us, as opposed to trying not to do something that's not healthy, right? The more we focus on trying not to do something, the more engaged we are with it, the more we're stuck and giving energy and time and focus on. So instead, try to eat one healthy meal a day maybe. Try to eat more fruit than I did yesterday, or try to drink some more water. You know, doing the things that I think are healthy, I would trust the
Lou,
nutrition-wise.
you raised an interesting point, something that you know, somebody who's been in the industry for a long time hears a lot is, you know, you'll have a Thursday, say, you know, you'll wake up, an individual wake up and say, okay, I have a goal of eating well today. Today's my day.
Today's my day.
And then at 12 o'clock, you know, your daughter makes brownies and you eat the brownie.
Yeah.
Well, my day's gone.
Yeah.
I might as well
It's
just...
all or nothing.
Or start next week, yeah.
It doesn't have to be that way. Just anecdotally, I'll tell you a couple tricks that I found. Just not as a doctor, just as a human, figuring living in the same world, right? Wanting the same brownie that everybody else wants, wanting the same cheesesteak that everybody else wants. Is routine helps me.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, routine helps me. I got the best advice when I was probably 19 years old from an individual at the gym who was just you know, a guy in the gym who was in great shape, and he said, just think of it as put it on your schedule, right? Just put it on your schedule. So if we all have jobs, you know, we have jobs, and we have jobs, we have to go to those jobs at a certain time. You have to be at a certain time, and we all do that, right? We all do that. Well, say okay, 9 to 9:30, or 10 to 10:30, or 11 to 11:30 is my fitness time. Just put it in your schedule.
Yeah.
And sometimes you'll get there and sometimes you won't, and that's okay. So just because you make it on Monday but you miss it on Tuesday for whatever reason, don't compound that by saying, well, I'm done now, I can't stay on.
Right. So it's the interpretation of the experience,
Yeah,
not so much just it's over.
Right, get as many days in the week as you can. And then Lou, to your point, if you do maybe 3 or 4 days in 1 week, maybe the next week you try to get 5. 30 minutes a day.
Well, it goes back to perspective too. As you were saying that, I was thinking, well, my perspective is if I mess up on Monday, my week's messed up, right? Well, not necessarily. That depends on your perspective. If I say, okay, this morning I didn't eat as well, this afternoon I can. I can always, at any point in time, get back on track. And I think that's really important for us to realize, pause, take a moment, think about it.
What do I want?
Remember, what do I want, and how do I get there? How am I going to get there?
I think the struggle is a lot of times it's like I'll answer that question, what do I want? And my answer is going to be, well, I wanted to do good today, and I didn't. Right? So there's this tug of war, I think, a lot of times in our minds where it's not, back to kind of what we were talking about earlier, is it's not good enough. Like, if I didn't do it the way that I originally planned, then it's not enough and it's not worth doing. And, you know, again, back to the interpretation, but I think it's important to understand that that tug of war is going to be there and I don't need to give it my energy. I don't have to invest in it if I don't want to. And maybe some days it's harder than others, but to kind of recognize, to your point, at any point I can choose not to, or I can choose to, right? Like either way, we can always start at any moment. So I don't know, I think that's something that's important to know that will happen, not because we're being negative in our projection,
so we can kind of predict it in some ways. We don't necessarily know when, but we know there's a chance. Some days have a higher chance and probability than other days, but I think it's important to realize that it's still okay.
Right.
If we can look at it from a perspective of adapting and continuing to focus on what do we want and how do we get there, as opposed to, I messed up, I'm done.
Right.
We don't have to end the story there. We can always create another chapter. We can always start writing about it. We can always start doing it. We can always do what we need to do to get to where we want to go and to achieve and experience the values, the things that are important to us on a daily basis.
And I would also add this, is as people, right, as individuals, as human beings, we all need to remember that health is not external, in the sense that don't look at the fitness magazines. Don't look at individuals on TV, which is all fake, by the way. Right? Like
Whole other story.
Yeah.
we're talking about lights, makeup, Photoshop, tanning oil, all that.
Are we going to use that?
We're going to use that. We're going to tanning oil.
No, we forgot about that.
But so many people that I've dealt with in my decades of experience doing this have a vision in their mind of what fitness is or what health is.
Right.
That's the person on TV, that's the TV show, that's the magazine. And I am not fit unless I look like that. That's just so not true, right? Health, overall health and fitness, mental, mind, body, soul health, has nothing to do with that, right? Even if you say, I want to look better for myself, I want to look better for myself, and that's fine, and that's a wonderful goal if that's something you choose to do, but that does not equate to health and wellness. It in no way does that equate to health and wellness. And it's important to understand that healthy is a mindset, and it's also not only physically, but also your immune system, which is infinitely important to overall health. I'm not talking post-COVID-19. I'm talking just the health in general. Movement, exercise, and nutrition will bolster your immune system. It is undisputed.
And
The evidence
quality
is
of life, right?
overwhelming.
And
And if
mindset.
you have a healthy immune system, you will feel better mind, body, and soul. The way you digest food is better. The way you say, well, what does my immune system have to do with the way I have a perspective against? Well, inside your body will affect what you're feeling hormonally, chemically, neurotransmitter-wise, all that other stuff. So if you eat healthy, all your immune system glands will be functioning on high, and you'll fight off any disease that comes across. You'll have infinitely less of a chance to get almost anything that comes across. Now, there's always a certain level of disease that humans must experience, for sure. But you have a better chance to be healthy and stay healthy through any disease process, whether it be cancer, COVID-19, or the flu, with a healthy immune system. And diet and exercise is a really simple way to do that. And your body doesn't ask for much. That's another thing. Oftentimes people feel like, and again, possibly it's because, you know, the commercials, the workout videos, and all that stuff that you see, people have this perception that an hour a day, I have to do this hour and a half a day, I have to eat green leafy vegetables, I can't do that. No, that is just not true. That is not the path to health, right? 30 minutes a day, make good, healthy choices.
Most of the time.
Most of the time. It doesn't have to be every time.
Right.
It certainly doesn't.
We're still good enough if we do it once in a while.
Oh my God, yes.
But I think to your point though, if we had a different visual of what it is that we actually wanted as opposed to I want that, which we don't actually even know what that is because we're not theirs, is like if we can redefine that, then we can feel more successful. Like I even talk to people, you know, about drinking water. I mean, we all know drinking water is healthy for you. Your doctor says it, the health magazine says it, but does anybody really know why? Like, what am I looking for other than I have to pee 100 times a day when I drink more water, which doesn't sound that fun. It's like, why do I have to do that? And, you know, being educated around, well, why? Well,
So
it
why?
makes you function. I mean, if you think about it, your blood's made up of majority water. And so if we're dehydrated, your blood, it takes a lot more to pump through your body because it's thicker. It's not as
So that
diluted,
slows
if you
us
will.
down if we don't
So you're
have the water.
lethargic, and
Ah.
it's hard to process things, and it's you're not quick on your feet, and it's hard to remember things. There's just so many different things, kind of like you were just alluding to, that we're not benefiting from, but we're just so set on I have to, you know, drink this much, eat this. It's like, but why? what are you seeing as a benefit from it? And if we can kind of understand that there's more internal benefits than just I'm gonna look better. Like, we have to define, what does feeling better really look like? Does it mean I'm gonna be happy all the time? Not necessarily.
Right.
But can I think clear? Yeah, you're gonna increase your likelihood.
Just to be clear, though, just because I have a glass of water right now doesn't mean I miraculously have a clearer way of thinking about things or have
If you're
an
thirsty,
increased
it's already
energy.
too late. You need to catch up still. It's not like,
So maintaining that
Right.
is how we stay in
Right.
fluid, being able to move easier and think easier. You know,
Right.
I remember, Darren, you always said to me about getting fit, that the idea of going to a gym or working out, you can't just do that for 30 minutes and then look in the mirror and say, I didn't lose any weight. Or I don't have those muscles anymore, or yet, right? This is something that has to be routine. It has to be fairly consistent, right? We do it more often than not.
Right.
And the more that we have that routine of doing it, the more easy it becomes
Right.
to do. And if we can understand the benefit of it, not just how we feel, but why do we drink water?
Right.
Why do we eat healthier? Why do we have a more positive mindset? How does that translate into us thriving?
Right.
Then we have buy-in, right? Then we have motivation. Then we have
That
understanding.
internal drive.
It's that
yeah.
internal drive.
Rachel, I'll add a couple interesting points, not to get overly scientific here, but some interesting points on, just to extrapolate more on what you said about water, and everything was beautifully stated, is if you had to pick maybe one place to start, water would be a great place to start. I'll
Yeah.
give you two really quick reasons why. It's your body's response to the perception of dehydration. Okay, when your body is, as Rachel clearly articulated, everything's made up of water in your body. But two things happen when you get dehydrated. The big thing is there's a little piece of your kidneys, or glands that live on top of your kidneys, that do something when we don't have enough water. And one of it is they slow our metabolism down. Our metabolism is how fast our engine's running. It's kind of how fast everything moves. So if your metabolism is slow, you don't think as clearly. You don't move as quickly. You're not as energetic because your body says, uh-oh, I'm going to run out of water. Let me turn the dial down and conserve all the water I have. It doesn't want to burn through water, so it slows your car down. It's like you have a car that's supposed to go 55 miles an hour. Your car is going to go, nope, you can only go 35 because I can't run out of gas. It's just that simple. The second thing it does is, it's a true story. Many times what we perceive as hunger is dehydration. It's your body's want for food. Your hypothalamus says, I want food, right? It doesn't. It wants the water in the food. So many times when you have cravings, and uncomfortable cravings, right? I mean, no, sometimes the craving's a craving, like, oh my God, the cookies look good. But sometimes, like, oh my God, I'm uncomfortable.
I just need to eat something.
I just need to eat something. A lot of times, that's water. Your body wants the water in the cookie,
Right.
not the cookie. So all of a sudden, just by the simple act of taking in more water, that less hunger frustration comes in, as well as your metabolism or your ability to burn calories just goes up. So water's almost like free fitness. You know what I mean? And one thing that happens, right?
I worked out today. I had a bottle of water.
Yeah.
And one thing that happens to us as human beings in general, if we're dealing with an internal stimuli, you can't focus on anything external. So the best way to think about it is if I bang my knee or my leg on this table, we could be having this conversation, I'm going to be thinking about anything else, but okay, yeah, you guys keep talking, whatever. I can't get past this, right? So in order to thrive and to function, if we're good inside, you can give externally. If you think you need to starve yourself or all this mythology about nutrition, you're going to be responding to being hungry, having slow metabolism, being tired all the time. You're not going to be able to give of your kids who need you now, of your parents who need you now, of your brother and sister who may be scared, or your mom who may be elderly, or whatever. You're not going to be able to give because you're responding to the internal stuff.
Right.
And water is the easiest way, the simplest way to start that. Another thing I would add from the fitness perspective that's very simple is try to just accomplish one thing at a time. So if you wake up on Monday it's easy to get overwhelmed with, okay, I'm going to work out 30 minutes, I'm going to drink X amount of water, and I'm going to make sure I eat some fruit today. Okay, that could get overwhelming, you get sidetracked. Like you could say, all right, I got my water in, but I don't have time to work out. I have to help so-and-so with homework or whatever, and that's all real, and that's very important, right? But then you're sidetracked and your day goes. Wake up and accomplish one thing from a fitness nutrition perspective. I'm going to, what I'm going to do today? I'm going to exercise for 30 minutes. I'm going to get down and up and off the floor 5-6 times. I'm going to, just one thing. And then maybe the next day, you try to accomplish 2 of those things. And then before you know it, Lou, as you pointed out, it starts to become routine.
Yeah.
Right? Any habit is just what it sounds like.
Yep.
You just do it over and over again, it starts to become routine.
So you just got to start.
You just got to start.
And I think that's really key. We just got to start. And I think one of the things to recap is to recognize, how do you start? Well, there's many ways to do that. As we've pointed out, it involves mindset. It involves perspective. It involves having routine. It involves nutrition. It involves physical exercise, drinking water. Do I have to do all of those things? No. Pick something. Choose something and get started today. We started this conversation to give people an opportunity to hear what you can do in order to thrive. And that's what we wholeheartedly believe in. And part of what this was to do, this conversation, was a starting point. We're going to continue to have more videos like this to talk about specific things that anybody can do starting right now in order to thrive. And so hopefully people enjoyed this conversation. They'll be able to tune in later. They can come to our website, ask some questions. Hopefully we'll be able to do a live conversation at some point. So hopefully everybody will tune in. I want to thank you guys for being here and for all the input that you guys shared, and hopefully it was helpful.
Thank you, Lou.
Thanks.